Well, this video is probably going to be all over the place, but I can't remember what I've filmed and what I've not from telling you what I'm doing. But anyway, I feel like I've already built the house after doing all this work and getting the slab ready, but I have worked over the last 3 or 4 days and just set the camera up here and there, but it's been sort of under time constraints, so I haven't had a lot of time to talk and do much explaining. But I'll go through here and sort of show you the process we went through to get this thing ready to go. But hey, nothing happens between now and about 5 o'clock in the morning. We're gonna have some concrete coming. Now I'm gonna be putting a 2-inch foam board insulation underneath my slab. And so this stuff needs to lay down pretty flat. So you take, you know, a gravel pad this big with all these pipes in here and trying to rake it down flat makes it difficult. But I was able to squeeze the tractor in here with a land plane, and as you can see, it does a pretty good job on getting it level. So you want that stuff to lay as level as you can. So I'm gonna try to weasel my way through here with this land plane and try to get everything flattened out so that stuff will lay down a little better. Well, I've been planning for this house, and you try to think of all aspects of, you know, how you're going to build it and how you're going to construct it. This is the one thing that I've probably tossed back and forth more than any, is whether or not I should put this in here or not. This stuff's pretty expensive enough for what I'm doing here today. You're probably looking at $4,500 to put this stuff down. And in the area I'm in, we've got a pretty mild climate. I mean, it gets hot in the summer, gets fairly cold in the winter, but then we've got 2 seasons. It's pretty mild. So when you look at the average temperature for this area, I mean, it's probably 60 degrees. So when you're trying to think about, am I going to be able to justify the money that I'm going to spend for the heat loss that I would get, it'll take me a while to get that. Now it might, I guess the main reason I've done it might be a little warmer on your feet when you're walking in the house barefooted, but other than that, it's going to take me probably a long time to get $4,000 back when you look at the cost of it. Another thing I'll say about it is, you know, ground temperature, let's just say it's 55 degrees. Well, when it's 90 degrees outside and you're fighting 90-degree weather, you know, are you going to pick up the benefit of having a cold floor to help cool your house? So I think you can flip a quarter both ways on this stuff. Now, if you're in the northern climates to where it's, you know, the average temperature is much lower, I'd say put it under it. But obviously I've put it under it, but it almost didn't go in here. And I still ain't hardly sold on it. But hey, I've got it down. It'll keep the wife's toes a little warmer. But another question that I'm probably going to get is why I'm putting this down before I actually put my vapor barrier down. This stuff is, as you can see, superior moisture resistant. It's made to go underneath the slab. It's 25 psi. But the reason I'm putting this down before I put my vapor barrier down is obviously I've got stone down, which I'm gonna keep that water, you know, that moisture. I've got a good bed of stone, so I'll keep the moisture off of it. But if I get to pouring concrete and this stuff is sitting on top of my vapor barrier, the thing I'd worry about is if for some reason concrete were to get under this, that stuff would float like a boat. And if it started floating and floated up in that concrete, you'd be in a mess. And I will tell you, Travis is not a fan of jackhammering concrete out. don't talk about beating the hammer. And you guys mean to drive these around through here as I do, every little bit helps. My steel in my footers here is I went ahead and put plastic up, and then it's wrapped back up underneath my vapor barrier. But the reason I did this is I want to try to save all my framing material. That way it'll be easier to get the forms off of it, and it won't get that concrete all over them. So all my forms is I'm going to use for rafters in the breezeway of the house. But I'll have a porch that'll go all the way around this house. So what I'm doing is some cross members underneath my form. I'm letting this stick out past where the edge of the concrete will be, and then what I'll be able to do is tie in my steel for my porch once I pour it, and it'll sort of marry everything together. And this footer will help the porch will help the footer, and it'll sort of all work as one unit. So versus having to come back and drill holes in it, heck, I'm just going to stick it through there now, and that way I can tie onto this, and it should help me out. Well, we're about ready to pour concrete. I'll give you a little rundown here on what we did. My footers were about 16 inches deep on average. We're probably looking about 26, 28 inches. And then I've tapered it back from my insulation down into my footer. As for steel in my footers, I've got 5 pieces of 1/2-inch rebar ran, 3 in the bottom, 2 at the top. And then I've got the wire mesh run all over the slab of the house, the breezeway, and the garage. Now the wire mesh, it won't act much for strength, but just sort of might help with some of the surface cracking, but it'll sort of tie everything together. But I wanted plenty of rebar in my footers, that way you pick up that additional strength. Now I've got 3 boxes set here. This will be for my showers and bathtubs. Both of these will be showers, which P-traps are in the line below the surface. But these will form up, and then once concrete's poured, I can dig these back out, and then that way we'll have a little bit of flexibility. If the tub doesn't center up just exactly perfect on our pipe, then we'd have a little bit to maybe put a 22.5 or something and adjust that and get it to line up with the showers. And then over on the other side, I've got this one set up for a tub shower. So this drain actually is coming out just behind the tub and in front of the wall. So what I've done is the actual wall that will come in behind this tub will actually hang over this hole about 1.5 inches. That way when you tie your drain on down here, you got a little room to work in behind it. But this one's built 12 by 16 to give you room to come out, catch your tub drain, come back in, tie down, and then go down. And again, this one's got a P-trap plumbed into the drain line down below. Now everything you see with caps, obviously those are drain lines, so we had to pressure test those to make sure we didn't have any leaks. But everything you see with tape, that is conduit for my water lines that will be running underneath my slab. My main line will come in here. I'll have a little utility room that we'll sort of have hidden in the house, but water will come in, water heater will set in here, and then we'll come out of here and it'll circulate around the house. That way I can circulate my hot water, and that way I won't have to wait for a minute for hot water to get over here. So basically I will have no connections underneath the concrete. Everything will come in, it'll go back down, it'll come back up, it'll go back down, come back up, go back down, and all the way around the house, and then it'll circulate back to my little utility room here where my water heater will be. Now for safe measures in my little utility room here, in case I did have some kind of catastrophe with my water heater and my lines coming in, I went ahead and put a floor drain in here. They'll screed the concrete level and keep the floor level, and I talked with him today, and we're just gonna sort of hand trowel some fall around this. I've got that drain set a 1/2 inch below my floor level, but that way if something did happen, we'd have a way to get that water out of our little utility room here. Outside of that, I did want to do a little bit of future planning. So I want to run some electricity down to the pond, which the pond is probably 500, 600 feet down near the road. So I want to be able to aerate that pond. So I went ahead and just stubbed in a piece of conduit here that's stubbed out underneath my foundation. That way, once everything's done, my panel box will be right here, so I'll be able to come over, go downtown to that, and then we'll be able to run that down to the pond. Obviously that'll be at a later date. I've got another piece of conduit right here. Now I have set this building up to be a woodworking shop, garage, workshop, whatever you want to call it, but I've got everything sort of plumbed up and wired up to where I'll have my air compressor and a dust collection system outside my workshop. So what I'm going to do is I'll actually tie on conduit here, and then I'm going to run conduit over here and tie it into inside this building. That way I can run an air hose over here, and I'll only have to have one compressor over there, but I'll be able to get air over here. Now, I know you get condensation in your air lines. I'll just have to figure that out later on. But that way I can operate 2 buildings with 1 air compressor. And last but not least on the conduit is I am in the back right-hand corner of the garage. And I went ahead and stubbed up 1.5 inch pipe here so where I can run a gas line into the building. We're gonna be using propane for a cook stove and a fireplace, and I may end up using it for emergency heat. I don't know that yet, but I don't want a propane tank sitting out here visible, so I was going to buy an underground tank and bury it back there over the hill. Those things from a price standpoint, they're just astronomical now, so I'll camouflage it some form or fashion over the bank there, but that way I can bring my conduit in, come into the building here, and then I'll be able to move throughout the building without having to come back outside and cover everything I need. As for depth of concrete in the house, I'm at about 4 inches on average in the breezeway, and then in the garage I average out at 5 inches. But here where my doors come in, I'll have 2 12-foot doors that come in this end and then 1 going out the back. I've dug these down a little bit deeper here, so I've got 6-7 inches where I come into my doors. So that's sort of how much concrete we're going to be pouring in here. Well, I'll tell you, there's not a whole lot of things in life that I get real worked up over or get nervous about, but I will tell you, anytime I've got concrete coming, I always get a little bit nervous, and especially with this big of a pour, there's a lot of money going in the ground. You only get one time, one crack at it. So I've been on pins and needles for the last few days thinking about this, but I'll be glad when tomorrow's over and we got some concrete down. But I've got some good guys that are pouring it for me. They've poured a bunch of slabs for me in the past. They've got a big crew and they can handle this kind of work. But you definitely don't want no greenhorns on something that's going to cost you this much money. You want somebody that knows what they're doing, got the equipment, got the people to help them. But I'm confident in my concrete man, so that helps a whole lot. The only thing I'm worried about is the boy that formed it. I'm worried about his work a little bit. My dad used to preach to my brother and I growing up. Anytime we had a project going on, he'd say, boys, don't cut the first board until you've built the whole thing laying in bed at night. And he was trying to get us, you know, teach us to, hey, you got to think things from start to finish, and that way, you know, they go a little bit smoother. But I'll tell you, I'm sick and tired of building this thing in the bed. So, hey, there it is. And, hey, we'll see how it turns out. But I'll have to thank him. He come up and helped me get this thing sort of finished off and put together. But I got 3 or 4 pretty good days out of the old man. But, hey, thanks, Pat. Well, this video is probably going to be all over the place because it's been pretty hectic. But, hey, we're off to the races. And if you watched, I appreciate it. And the next video, you're to see some mud flying. So, hey, we'll see you later.